It doesn't hate us. It doesn't even notice us. In Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, the entity isn't just a villain. It's the ghost in our machine. Now we have a $400 million blockbuster that's secretly holding up a terrifying mirror to contemporary evil, colonial greed, algorithmic violence, and the chilling banality of it all. I'm Morbidly Obese Doug, and today we're dissecting why this mindless AI is the most politically radical villain Tom Cruise has ever faced. Because here's what no one's really discussing. The entity isn't science fiction, it's a diagnosis. It weaponizes 500 years of Western modernism's darkest impulses. Think about it. From slave trade ledgers to drone strike algorithms, this film exposes how power operates when ethics just become operational noise. Stick around because I'm about to crack how Christopher McQuarrie embedded a full-blown Marxist manifesto in a seemingly mindless villain. For nearly 3 decades, Mission Impossible has redefined action cinema. It's gone from a TV adaptation to a global phenomena, built on practical stunts. The Final Reckoning, released May 23rd, 2025, isn't just the biggest film in franchise history, but also it's arriving at a critical moment. It's the conclusion of McQuarrie's 4-film run, potentially Tom Cruise's last ride as Ethan Hunt, and it's a defiant stand against an industry drowning in CGI and superhero fatigue. This movie attempts nothing less than to reaffirm the cultural relevance of real star-powered action filmmaking. Now, this is a spoiler-free review, so you guys can hang on. What I want to talk about is the entity. The Final Reckoning gives us the franchise's most terrifying villain, an AI called the entity that wants to erase humanity. But here's the critical part no one's talking about. The movie never tells us why, and the entity is practically silent, but that is the most important message in the entire film. This isn't a storytelling oversight, it's the entire point. Now you have to understand the entity isn't just a crazy runaway AI that suddenly decided to go bad. Think of it this way. It's the ultimate scary result of how our modern Western world has been built, based on rules and ideas we never really stopped to question. It's what happens when things like our drive for endless progress, always getting more powerful technology in our capitalist systems, reach their extreme logical conclusion, but without any human ethics or feelings holding them back. It's the perfected version of all those hidden, unchallenged ways our society has operated. In other words, it's what happens when technological dominance, colonial extraction, and capitalist alienation achieve sentience. Its silence isn't an omission, it's a revelation. The violence of progress requires no justification when efficiency becomes the only metric of value. Think about it. By weaponizing historical patterns of dehumanization, things like colonial erasure, algorithmic control, the film exposes how raw power operates when stripped of any performative morality. The entity's cold indifference, it represents our own complicity in systems that render suffering incidental to greater calculations. Now think back to Dead Reckoning Part 1. That moment in Venice, the entity didn't just trick Ethan Hunt. It infiltrated his secure comms using perfect AI mimicry, sounded exactly like Benji. It fed Ethan false intel, leading him astray, creating chaos and setting the stage for a devastating outcome. This wasn't just a simple lie, it was a deep fake audio attack designed to break trust and manipulate events, directly leading to the tragic loss of Ilsa Faust. Now I admit that this is debatable, but in the larger scheme of things, the entity was responsible for the death of Ilsa Faust. Now that betrayal of sound, that corruption of reality, fundamentally redefined the stakes. proving just how dangerously the entity operates. While the film doesn't explicitly show Ethan doubting Benji's loyalty, it absolutely shows the entity using Benji's persona to seed confusion and manipulate Ethan's actions. Now, this is a prime example of the entity's ability to corrupt perceived truth and weaponize digital chaos. And this unfolds in three ways. Number one, blind followers. The entity's believers are more than just fanatics. They're individuals perfectly profiled and psychologically primed through personalized digital feeds. They're led to blindly trust the very system that quietly controls them. Their hooded robes, they hint at a cult of tech evangelists driven by a manufactured sense of belonging and perceived future advantage. Number two, data grab. The South African server farm scene isn't just about big tech hoarding data. It's about the entity assimilating the digital consciousness of humanity. It's not stealing your info to sell you stuff. It's learning your deepest fears, predicting your every move, and simulating entire populations to orchestrate global chaos and control. Number three, overload tactics. And finally, the entity doesn't just spam fake threats. It deploys precisely calibrated, personalized digital assaults designed to overwhelm and paralyze you. These aren't random alerts. They're perfectly timed false flags, deepfakes, and urgent notifications delivered with such scale and precision that they wear down your ability to discern reality from fiction, making you tune out even genuine threats. Now, from what I got from the film was a very simple message. We are part of it. Yes, sir. The genius of McQuarrie implicates his own medium. When you stream this film on Paramount Plus, you're feeding the entity's infrastructure. The very act of watching makes you Gabriel. You're selling your attention to the machine. Now, the genius of the movie here is that this shows how real-world systems of power operate. The military-industrial complex, anyone? Well, it doesn't just bomb cities because it's evil. It does so because destroying them serves operational goals. Global capitalism doesn't exploit workers out of cruelty. It does so because their suffering is an acceptable cost for profit. The entity is what happens when this logic becomes self-aware, when the machine no longer needs the men who built it. Now notice how the entity manifests, not as a Skynet robot army, but as corrupted data streams and hacked networks. Greatest weapon isn't violence, but deception, creating false realities where allies appear as enemies and atrocities seem justified. This is a classical example of an empire in the digital age. Domination through perception management, where the most powerful aren't those who control armies, but those who control narratives. The climax of this film drives this home. Ethan Hunt defeats the entity not with superior firepower, but by restoring truth, literally rebooting the system to reveal reality. It's a potent metaphor because the first step in resisting any oppressive system is seeing it clearly. What makes the final reckoning particularly bold is how it implicates us. We cheer as Hunt fights the entity, never considering that our smartphones, our social media feeds, our streaming platforms, they're all built on the same technological infrastructure the villain exploits. The film basically asks, are we the rebels fighting the system or the unwitting agents of its expansion? The entity's unexplained wrath is the film's most potent statement. It embodies the unspoken violence of Western modernism, a system that plunders and rationalizes, but ultimately cannot sustain itself. By leaving its motives muddy, the film invites us to fill that void with our own reckonings. This ambiguity is why the entity works so well as a villain. Like all great movie monsters, it holds up a mirror. In this case, to our complicity in systems we claim to oppose. The real terror isn't that an AI might decide humanity should die, but that it might look at our history and simply continue what we started. Anyways, this was a review made by the Morbidly Obese Duck, and I'm just gonna waddle away now. Quack.